we're also very strong proponents of lean customer development. And for us, that comes to life almost before we ever get to worrying about what an MVP might look like. We encourage our customers and really enjoy helping them go through the customer development process so that they're talking to their customers. They're learning what the pain points are that those customers have that current products perhaps don't fulfill. And in doing so, discovering opportunities for growth, for new product development, for new venture building that align to a very clear need as articulated by the customer that ideally aligns to our partner's core business that we can validate along the way and ensure that people are, to your point, willing to pay for. Because ultimately that's the end goal of whatever we're creating. And so before we ever get to the moment of let's go build the MVP or let's go build the one feature that's going to have the greatest impact, there's a process that we go through to discover what that thing is. And so we start, kind of wide with customer interviews and just sort of probing questions around what might we create. It's really a learning opportunity. And then from there,
before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Danny Nathan. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for our chat.
Yeah, me too. Danny is the founder of Apollo 21. They don't launch rocket ships. Apparently, they launch products and ventures, things like that.
Yeah, that's what we do. No rockets yet, but
not going into space. Yeah.
No, as much as we think that would be exciting, it might be a little bit more. Might be biting off more than we can chew.
You never know. Someday you might, help a company that's going into space.
That would be really cool.
So there'd be alignment there, at least in your branding.
Yes, at least from a brand perspective.
No, that's awesome. So as we do here on The Builders, the first time we have you on the show is we talk a little bit about you, or have you talk a little bit about you, learning about your origin story, how you landed where you are today, doing the amazing things you're doing in the world, helping people, providing, all the things that you provide. So you can go make this a long version or short version, whatever you feel is going to be impactful.
All right.
and help us learn more about you. And maybe we can extract some stories from there. That's be interesting and insightful.
Sounds good. All right. So, I've had, as you noted earlier, a bit of a roller coaster career. I actually started in the world of advertising, realized very quickly that I didn't enjoy it much, and that the most fun you'll ever have in the world of advertising, unfortunately, happens during ad school. And once you're out in the real world, it gets a lot less fun. And so,
so you're doing real advertising, like
real advertising, TV spots, magazines, newspapers, like old school stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. And what I realized was that I guess I have to place this in time a little bit to give that context. This was back in the early to mid 2000s when the internet was kind of, becoming a thing. And, I was probably in the last class out of ad school that didn't focus on what the internet brought to the world of advertising and brand communication and so on. So we really were focused on TV spots and newspaper ads and magazine ads and all that not fun stuff. And I got really frustrated with it because I was tired of working with companies that were spending an inordinate amount of money to effectively interrupt their customers' lives at inopportune times to scream something at them that customer probably wasn't really interested in hearing. And it got me thinking down the path of, surely there must be a better way to handle this interaction and situation. And so that ended up with me kind of giving myself a crash course in the world of technology-driven communications and marketing and so on. And I read through a stack of books and kind of gave myself a second MBA that ultimately led to a job at an innovation consultancy here in New York at the time called Poke. And I spent about 5 years there helping Poke grow their offering and really being exposed to a new thought process around what it meant for technology-enabled brand engagement, how to bring value to the lives of customers as opposed to just yelling at them repeatedly that they should buy your whatever. And it was a really enlightening and eye-opening experience because it was the first time that I had ever worked for somebody who was willing to say no to a client, even if it meant saying no to money that came with that client. And so we had a relatively strong stance on where we drew the line in terms of how we felt communication should work and how technology should enable that. And it was really a growth experience for me. And so coming out of that, I was also introduced to the world of startups and entrepreneurship through that opportunity. And that really got my attention. The idea of moving away from effectively selling things to people and rather focusing on building things for people resonated for me heavily. And so that led me eventually to where I am today. I left Poke and spent the next, I spent the next 12 years or so leading up to today, starting a number of companies of my own, working as head of product in a number of other startups, and really focused on building unique and interesting products that I thought added value to people's lives. And so that ultimately led to the creation of Apollo 21 about 3 years ago. And our core focus is helping generally mid to enterprise size organizations build new products, launch new ventures, and create technology to solve operational challenges. So effectively building customer products or building internally utilized products and new ventures.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So kind of rewinding a little bit, I'm curious, like, so you were at Poke, you had probably had other jobs in there somewhere, like before that?
I was at Poke for about 5 years and then bounced around a number of startups, founded a couple of startups along the way, leading up to where I am. So yeah, there's been a half dozen or so in the intervening years.
So what was it about kind of going into business for yourself or entrepreneurship or, doing something on your own that attracted you to doing that? Like what was, did you not like working for somebody else? Did you not see yourself in the corporate ladder what
I definitely never saw
you?
myself. I'm sorry. I definitely never saw myself on the corporate ladder. The largest company that I've ever worked for is about 150 people. And that is my context for big, although I realize it is not a large company by, all standards. Really for me, it's about having control over my own destiny, feeling like I am succeeding or failing based on my own merits. And yeah, there's a modicum of control that comes with, working for yourself and feeling like you have the freedom to make the decisions that you feel are most appropriate in the moment. And, I've worked for some amazing people. I'm not stuck on the idea of working for myself solely, but I really appreciate being part of a team where, I feel like I have a voice and I feel like I have a direct impact on the work that's being created. And for me, the easiest place to cultivate that is within a company that I run.
You run, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think that, you do go work for some other companies, and I'm sure you don't regret working for Poke or some other companies because you're gaining experience along the way.
Of course.
Like I work for a corporation as well. I always say corporation, but they literally were smaller than the one you're talking about. I think they had like maybe 40 employees or 30.
Okay.
But for a few years, but in that experience, I learned so much in that time frame that I apply to my own business today, my agency. And, so you said something you learned a lot from Poke. I think you were talking about selling versus building or something like that. Mm-hmm. What was kind of the biggest lessons out of that experience?
The biggest lesson for me coming out of Poke was that there is the opportunity for at least at the time, different relationship between companies and their customers. And again, this was a while ago, and my experience up to that point had been through the lens of marketing and advertising, where a lot of that was focused on how do we tell the world that they need our thing, for example. And I joined Poke at around the time that social media was really becoming highly used and established. The iPhone had just come out like 2 months before I joined the company. And so it was really in an era that was representative of some massive change in the way that companies and consumers viewed that relationship and what communications looked like, because people had ready, immediate access to the companies that they previously either didn't have access to in the form of a Twitter account or whatever, where they could, shout back effectively. And so it was eye-opening, and coupled with the willingness of the leadership at Poke, in this case, to focus on what they believed in and to stand by that was really the moment in my career that changed my view of how those relationships between service providers and clients could work, between companies and consumers could work, etc. And just to ground it in a concrete example for you, Matt, I was at Poke early on, and we had an RFP come in from Fujifilm, the camera company. And they wanted to build a photo sharing website for Fuji customers, and they had a $1 million budget. I mean, it was, a substantive amount of money, especially back then. Yeah. And we looked at it and kind of went, well, I mean, sure, we could go and build a photo sharing website for you, but have you heard of Flickr? And at the time, of course, everybody, listeners now are probably going, no, as a matter of fact, I've not heard of Flickr. But at the time, Flickr was the Instagram of the day, was the de facto photo sharing website. And on a daily basis, there were about 10,000 photos shot on Fuji cameras that were uploaded to Flickr every single day. And so our response to Fuji's RFP was effectively, hey, you don't need a photo sharing website. Flickr exists and it's amazing and they're doing great things. Have you thought about building an internet connected camera that would make it incredibly easy for people to put their photos on Flickr as they shoot them, for example? Yeah. If you want to build that, we would love to help. And if you want to spend $1 million building a photo sharing website, not us. And the fun part of that, of course, was how we responded to the RFP. We shot about 200 photos of the folks around our office, physical, like printed photos. And on the back of every single one, we wrote the URL where we were hosting our RFP response, which was www.thelastthingtheworldneedsisanotherphotosharingwebsite.com. Nice. And we shipped that box to Fuji as our RFP response. And to me, the reason that I love that story is it's exemplary of the approach and the type of thinking that was exemplified by the team at Poke. Yeah. And it was really, why that experience for me was so groundbreaking in my career and forced me to think about the world differently in the most positive way.
It's amazing. Like, you took your stance. Like,
exactly. And it was the first company that I'd ever worked for that was willing to take a stance. Every other company that I'd worked for or, interviewed at would have looked at that and said, oh my God, it's $1 million opportunity. We can't possibly piss them off. And the answer is yes, you can. Or, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to say no, which, to be clear, they did. They said no. They spent $1 million. They built a photo sharing website, and a year later they shut it down because Flickr still existed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the lesson in there too is the relationships with, your customers.
Yes.
And even in my agency, what we do, we partner with other agencies and have clients, direct clients, but all those, like, I don't want to work with somebody that is doing something I don't agree with, or that doesn't listen to my feedback, or we haven't built some kind of relationship there where they're obviously bringing us on board as experts, and hopefully we can, at least input, and they can consider some of the things we're saying to them. But you don't want somebody that's, relationships. I mean, I'm sure in your current business too is
of course
super, super critical. Are there any stances you've taken today in your business that?
Yes, there are a few stances that we take, and at this point we've kind of operationalized them as core principles for Apollo 21. And so we have three of them. The first is we approach every project with a mentality of crawl, walk, run. So we find it very difficult to satisfy business goals and needs by trying to build the 10-year vision of whatever a new product is. And so we focus very highly on finding the smallest thing that we can that will have the greatest impact for our clients and partners that we can build in a relatively short, fast, and hopefully not terribly expensive period of time, so that we have the opportunity to put it in people's hands and learn from it and determine what needs to happen next with some measured, data-driven view of the world, as opposed to just saying, we need to go build this thing, and if it doesn't do these 20 things, then it's not good enough to put in front of people. So that's one. Our second principle is relentless collaboration, which comes directly out of what I've just described. We work very closely with our clients and partners, and we like to create relationships that are driven by trust, that really see us working together to solve the core business problems that somebody is bringing forward. And our last principle, that is probably the newest and least grounded in, the days of yore of my career, but one that I have learned in the last few years, is we expect our clients to outgrow us. And that's a relatively unique stance I have found in our world, because most service-driven companies try to find a client and then hold on and extract as much value as they can from them in the form of dollars. And what I have realized is that eventually, if we are successful in the work that we're doing with our clients, they will need to internalize the operations of the products, ventures, whatever that we have worked with them to create. And fighting against that eventuality tarnishes the relationship, it erodes the trust that we've been talking about, and ultimately just kind of sours everything. Whereas if we go into an engagement with the understanding that eventually our time together not necessarily will end, but at least the relationship will shift, and you will look to us for different types of input, for example, we have a much easier time building and maintaining that trust and relationship. And that could look anything from us building a team, using that team to execute the product, and then literally transferring that team into the arms of our partner and client, so that we have effectively built and trained their software team, which for us, most of the time our clients don't have when they start working with us. And so those are the things that we really stand by today, and that I think guide how we interact with clients and what our beliefs are in the projects that we take on.
That's great. You kind of understand your space, where you're positioned.
We certainly try to. It makes lives a little bit easier, and we know the type of work that we like to work on, and because we enjoy doing that type of work, we tend to excel more at that than I tell people that we're not necessarily the best partner if what you need is road execution. If you have a 500-line product requirements document that says we need this and this and this and this, and you're just looking for somebody to crank those out, you can find somebody better for that particular need. But if you don't have that list, and you don't know what to build, and you don't know what to create that will bring value to your customers, and you're looking for a partner who can really dig in and explore that alongside your team, that's where we really excel.
Yeah. Oh man, that really resonates with me, because that's exactly kind of our messaging. It's all built around building that relationship, and you talk about the word partner. Yeah. Like, we're not just order takers. Yeah. There's your dog. Yeah. We're not just order takers. We're not just here to we'll do tasks, but
sure.
but we're going to work with you to find the most efficient way to do things or to have insights about things. And
you want to build a relationship where you have the freedom if somebody is putting a task in front of you that you don't think is the right next step, that you can at least vocalize that and know that, ultimately the client or partner might say, no, we really believe we need this. And then you have to decide how to move forward. But at least feeling like you have the level of trust and freedom to offer your strategic insight is, in my opinion, what builds those healthy relationships.
Well, exactly. And you want a partner that will listen to you, will listen to those things, at least listen. Maybe, I can think of lots of examples, but it's, sometimes it's, oh, there's a better way to do this. Like if we're getting some kind of task that's, we're keep repeating and like, well, I can make this more efficient where you could even just do it. We don't have to do it anymore. That where you're adding that value as well. And one of the things you said was enjoyment. I think all of this stuff you've kind of structured and put up some guardrails in terms of, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. We don't go outside of that. And this is who we like to work with. It does make a difference and impact on you and your mental health or whatever you want to call it. It's
yes.
You want to show up every day working with people you enjoy working with and doing the projects you want to enjoy doing. And it sounds like you prioritize that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it helps keep teams happier. And when teams and people are happy, then they're more motivated and they feel like they have greater ownership. And so it impacts everything across the board.
I mean, you want to make money. Money is important.
Yeah, that helps too, especially when you're running a business. But,
it really is.
We don't have to get into that part of it.
That boring stuff. No, I mean, but you probably will make money if you're doing what you enjoy and you're better at it. You become, great at it.
Exactly.
So one of the other things that kind of jumped out at me here is I love the crawl, walk, run situation, kind of the MVP situation, right? The minimal viable product. That's what it sounds like you're kind of leading with. Like, let's start with something simple that we can get into people's hands. Is that kind of how you...
Yes, it is very much, we are strong advocates for a lean methodology, and the only place where I won't say I disagree with what you're saying, Matt, but the only caveat that I'll add to it is we're also very strong proponents of lean customer development. And for us, that comes to life almost before we ever get to worrying about what an MVP might look like. We encourage our customers and really enjoy helping them go through the customer development process so that they're talking to their customers. They're learning what the pain points are that those customers have that current products perhaps don't fulfill. And in doing so, discovering opportunities for growth, for new product development, for new venture building that align to a very clear need as articulated by the customer that ideally aligns to our partner's core business that we can validate along the way and ensure that people are, to your point, willing to pay for. Because ultimately that's the end goal of whatever we're creating. And so before we ever get to the moment of let's go build the MVP or let's go build the one feature that's going to have the greatest impact, there's a process that we go through to discover what that thing is. And so we start, kind of wide with customer interviews and just sort of probing questions around what might we create. It's really a learning opportunity. And then from there, as we begin to identify what those pain points are that align to our business that we could solve, we then start thinking about solutions. And even at that point, we're not jumping into, oh, great, we had an idea that solves a problem, let's go build it. Instead, the MVP at that point might look almost like a comic strip. It's 4 or 5 frames of a storyboard that we then bring back and put in front of customers again and go, hey, you told us you have this pain. We've envisioned this thing that we think solves that pain. Does it? How interesting is it? Would you be willing to buy it?
Yeah,
etc.
Yeah.
And so the result of going through all of that kind of upfront work before we ever build anything is a huge mitigation of risk at every step. Because We know what the client needs. They've told us that they're interested in the solution. They've told us they're willing to pay for the solution. And at that point, often what we find is customers are so excited by the fact that somebody is listening to them and actually going out of their way to solve a problem that not only have we mitigated risk by identifying the thing that we want, we've also often lined up 10, 15, 20, 100 customers who are literally pounding at the door going, oh my God, have you finished yet? I need that thing. Like, come on. And so the day that you go to launch, you've got a group of people who are ready, willing, and waiting to buy. And so the amount of time that you put in upfront, in our experience, while it sounds like it extends out the process, actually speeds everything up because you end up building less, fewer features. You end up missing the mark less often, and you end up with customers who are there ready and waiting for you. And so it creates a really nice relationship, and it builds a ton of customer trust because they feel like they're being heard, because they feel like they've had the opportunity to input into the thing that you're building, and so they feel a sense of ownership in it.
Cool.
It is cool. It's really exciting to see it come to life too.
No, that's. Well, I think that's a piece. I kind of related to myself. We have products. We have we have WordPress plugins.
Sure.
Nothing fancy. But I think about process too. What's the next plugin we're going to create? What's the next feature? And at this stage, a lot of that grows out of our agency and what I see people needing or what we need.
Mm-hmm.
Like what would help us be more efficient? Sure. And so we build something that solves our problem and hopefully it solves somebody else's.
Yeah. And inevitably, hopefully it solves somebody else's along the way. I hear you.
Or maybe I can, convince somebody that they have a problem they didn't know they had. Cause we had that problem,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. But what you're saying is really, really interesting. And I'm wondering how somebody gets started doing that. Like how do you talk to customers before you have customers?
That's a really good question, Matt. I have an answer for you.
Awesome.
But I just hadn't thought about it from that perspective. That's a really good question. So in a world where you're either an early stage founder or you're an established company that's looking to build something new and trying to figure out what that thing is, to your point, you may not have the customer. That doesn't mean that you can't talk to people though. And depending on who and what you are and which of those kind of startup versus established company situations you're in, chances are you at least have some idea of what that problem space is that you're looking to solve. And it's really not that difficult to get people talking to you about the problems that they have. And the caveat in this is, and kind of hearkening back to what we were talking about from my experience in the world of advertising, that has to be a conversation and it has to be a genuinely open question rather than we think you have this problem and we're going to tell you that you have this problem and therefore you're going to tell us whether you like it. Because at that point, you've caught somebody off guard and they're going, sure, I guess, yes, because they want to get you out of their face. However, if you know who your target audience is or you have an inkling of who has the pain point that you're trying to solve, if you approach those people and explain that you are really looking to try and help them solve that problem, they are usually willing to talk to you. People love when you take an interest in what their problems are. Mm-hmm. And if you can help them come up with a solution to something that is genuinely a problem, usually it doesn't take much convincing to get them to start talking to you. And if it does, convincing today is a $20 Amazon gift card or whatever. Sure, if you need to incentivize it, go ahead. But honestly, even that, you generally don't necessarily have to do if you can find the right folks to talk to.
Yeah, that's the key is finding them. I mean, I just use an example here and maybe you have some insights into if this aligns. But one of the things that, I don't know if it's taught, but I've heard people, I've had conversations with people doing this is going out, even on the web. Let's say you'll use WordPress for an example. You have an idea for a WordPress plugin or kind of a general idea, want to do something.
Sure.
And you go to the WordPress forums or support areas and you look at what problems people are having with certain plugins. And then maybe maybe that's where you can connect with that person, reach out to that person and talk to them about that, or maybe just note that people are having this problem over and over again.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm describing, Matt. You're right. If you're trying to build a WordPress problem or a WordPress plugin to solve a problem, go and find the people that have that problem. And I guarantee you, if you're looking at the WordPress forums or, I don't know, the WordPress subreddit or whatever, and people are saying, how do you whatever? Oh my God, it's so frustrating that I can't. If you DM them and go, hey, I saw you talking about this. We're looking to solve that problem. Would you be willing to take 15 minutes just to talk to me about what exactly you're trying to accomplish? You're not going to get 100% response rate, but I guarantee you will find enough people who are going, oh my God, you want to talk to me to help me solve my problem? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's something you have to have tenacity, and like you got to understand that some people are going to say no, they're not, or they're going to ignore you.
Oh yeah. There's a notion of thick skin in it.
Yeah. There's a numbers game. Like with sales, right? You're going to have to call 100 people to get on the phone with a few, or whatever, to set up an appointment with a few, or whatever you're doing. It's a numbers game, and you figure out your numbers and you deploy. And,
yes.
The other thing here too, and this word has come up multiple times, is you're solving problems. That's what you're focused on, creating a product that solves a problem, a pain point.
Yes.
Are there other reasons to create a product? I think that's like, when I look at my services, what am I doing? I have identified a pain point that agencies have outsourcing. We're solving that for them.
Right.
Is there anything else is that what everybody does?
I think that if you're doing it a different way, we usually call it building a solution that is in search of a problem. Right. Generally that's a recipe for failure.
Right. Yeah, that's, some of my plugins could be in that category.
Yeah, unfortunately we've all been there. It's very easy to get stuck in a world of, wouldn't it be cool if, and then to immediately convince yourself, oh, well, if I think that's cool, somebody else is going to think that's cool. And if people think it's cool, then surely they'll be willing to pay a few bucks for it. And then you find yourself 6 months later having deployed an engineering team and, spending a bunch of money to create something, going, wait, I thought people would want this. And if you just talked to them at first and said, hey, would you want this? Then, you find out early on that the answer is no, or the answer is yes, but only if it does this too, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people out there shooting in the dark. Like, we're not sure. I just have this idea. I want to build it for myself, you know, and then hopefully, so I want to build this cool thing, and then hopefully there's a market out there for it. And they haven't even talked to the market yet.
Let's be clear. I've done that too, Matt. And we've all been there. I think everybody who is trying to create products has found themselves in that situation at some point, and it's the experience of having been through it that makes, at least me personally, such a strong advocate for the process that I'm describing, for the need for customer development, the need to talk to people before you build for people.
Yeah. And then you're doing something amazing in the world, right? You're solving problems. That's about the best thing you can do, is improve the world.
Yes.
What are some of let's say I'm a small business, or I want to be a small business. I have a product idea. We know we should be figure out how to get in touch with our customer, or maybe that's, through the efforts we're talking about, or creating content first. Does content work? If I create content, does that attract people that I could potentially, create an article? I don't know. I'm just brainstorming.
Yeah. I think there's a reason that content-led marketing is such a well-used phrase these days. And there's no question that people have learned that when they have a problem, one of the first things they do is go out and search for, literally type into Google, search for a solution to that problem. And, your MVP of a solution might just be an article on your blog that says, hey, if you want to do this. And I don't know, that blog post in and of itself could be a product, and it might be a product that you give away for free, but the exchange of value there is you give somebody value in learning and you gain brand affinity for it, for example. And I think that's sort of the the underlying thought behind most content marketing.
I think, I think, just an example, I mean, back in the 2000s, I had, I did a lot of content. I wrote reports. I had ebooks I was selling. I had affiliates and build memberships and all of that. I did that whole thing already. I'm done with it. But the reason I bring it up is because out of that grew lots of ideas,
Right.
For more products. So the more I did, the more feedback I got.
Yes.
And kind of this kind of feedback loop. And suddenly, I'm seeing my members or, my customers have this particular problem. Let's build a solution for it. Let's create a script. Let's create a piece of software to help them manipulate keywords or something.
Right.
Something crazy at the time. And then I turn around and sell that or have a software developer do it. I sell it as an affiliate and a lot grew out of that, just generating content and just doing stuff and taking action.
Exactly. But the interesting thing for me in what you just said is feedback. It's you're leveraging the content as a means to start the conversation with your customers to understand their pain point so that you know what to build for them. And so I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get started somewhere. You got to find your wedge to get in there, right? I mean,
of course.
And I think that, again, looking at my services today for web design development, a lot of what we do today has happened through conversations with other agencies, just jumping on a call, intro calls or whatever, and listening, doing a lot of listening, right?
Yes.
So, so once once we got an idea, so we're crawling. Is that what we're doing right now? We're crawling. We're trying to crawl the web for.
Well, I think that the customer discovery process in many ways leads to the moment of crawl. And crawl for us at least is, okay, we've heard from people, we've understood the pain point, we've come up with a solution, we have validated that the fact that they're willing to buy it. Crawl is, we've now identified that tiny little thing that we can build to add value that drives revenue. Let's go and make that thing. And coming out of crawl, which is the first sort of moment of creation, if you will, for whatever that new product is, you have something tangible that you can put out in the world and sell and see how it sells, ensure that what your customers told you when you talked to them, that they were willing to pay for your solution is true, that you can scale that truth, into greater revenue. And then inevitably that, of course, opens the door to opportunities for further customer development. As your customer base grows because they have the problem that you solved with the crawl portion, then you learn what else would be valuable to them, and walk might look like the next feature or two. Right. And run might look like product market fit. And all of a sudden you're off to the races and building something amazing.
Yeah. And you only get that feedback if you get it in people's hands. Right.
Done is better than perfect every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that.
Right. Because they're going to tell you, it would be really nice if you added this feature or added. Oh, yeah.
They'll tell you whether you want them to or not.
You're right. You can choose not to listen to them, but.
You can, but at your own peril.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So let's, as a product in general, can you share any stories and success stories of how this has developed for somebody? Do you have any particular examples of where somebody started crawling, that did their thing and now they're running?
Absolutely. One of our clients, was a big up and comer in the Western sports space. So think cowboys and rodeos and all that fun stuff, which generally is not considered a bastion of, technology. But that made it all the more ripe with opportunity. And so one of the things that our client wanted to create was a deeper touch point between rodeo athletes and fans, and a way for fans to keep up with what's happening in the world of rodeo, etc. So effectively think ESPN for rodeo. Okay. And rather than just going out and going, ESPN for rodeo, I get it, that makes sense, let's go build it. We started with customer development. So we started by talking to rodeo fans and asking them what was missing from their experience in the world of rodeo. And we talked to athletes about the same thing. And that was one of the most interesting learning experiences, because what we found from athletes in particular is that they really wanted to connect with their fan base, but they felt like existing social media wasn't well aligned to the world of rodeo for whatever reason. And they wanted a place where they could feel like they were closer to rodeo fans, because it is a relatively tight-knit community. And the other need that we heard that was super interesting was that because of the relative dearth of technology in the world of rodeo, you'd have athletes that even in the middle of a rodeo competition wouldn't be clear on what their standings were at any given moment. There was no way for them to look around and go, oh, the person went after me and now I've dropped from second to third place or whatever. And so we had a very clear-cut set of problems or needs that we could solve for. And ultimately that led to the creation of a mobile app that was designed to serve as ESPN for rodeo, but with the benefit of all of those problems and conversations that we had both with fans and athletes. And then, of course, the perspective of our client as well, who represented sort of the commercial side of that world, if you will. And so we created an app that was, everything from your news feed about the world of rodeo that responded to which of the rodeo disciplines you as a fan were most interested in, gave our client the opportunity to sell some of their merchandise, gave athletes a ready touch point to understand immediately what their standings were in the midst of a competition, and then, of course, served entertainment needs like live streaming rodeo events and things like that. And so it was a really interesting experience and a really well-rounded path towards, okay, we have this idea for a need that we can solve, but how do we ensure that it really fits and solves the problems that the core users of this application have at heart?
Yeah, when you say it that way, it seems like common sense. Like, why would I build something that I haven't talked to anybody? I have no idea if they want it or need it or...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a huge leap to understand why it works. It's just one of those things that when you're in the midst of the process of developing a new product, people tend to get excited and they get stuck in their head of, no, it's got to be this. It'll be so cool if this happens when I tap here or whatever. And the reality is that, your customers don't necessarily care about the beauty of the pixel perfect animation in the transition from screen 1 to screen 2.
Right.
They care about, can I see how well my favorite athlete is doing?
Exactly,
or
yeah.
Can I see how well I'm doing? And you get a lot of leeway if you can solve those core problems. It doesn't have to be amazingly beautiful. The transitions don't have to be pixel perfect. There's a lot of forgiveness in there that comes along with solving a problem.
In your process, do you also look to if this has already been built? Is that a thing?
Absolutely.
Like if you're
Absolutely,
okay, you got
because
the problems. It might be already be out there. They just don't have it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's incumbent on us as a steward for our clients and partners to do our diligence in that manner, because look, and this comes back to, we expect our clients to outgrow us. I don't want to go and spend $500,000 of a client's money to build an application that we could buy off the shelf for $99 a month. Like, it's bad business. It's a bad way to ingratiate yourself to a customer and to prove that you are a collaborative partner with them. Whereas if you can go to them and say, oh, that's your core problem? We can solve that in about 2 weeks and it'll cost you, $5. Whatever. Yeah. And that builds a ton of trust, because somebody looks at it and goes, oh, you could have told me that you needed $500,000 of my money to go and build that, but you didn't. And guess what? Next time they have a problem, they're that much more inclined to call.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to relationships, that word partner. Like, that's how you become trusted, and somebody can rely on you to give them the right feedback. So then, and that happens if that's already been built, or there's another solution, or it doesn't make sense in some way, and you say that, then that's good. Your partner now can go to the next idea. They don't have to waste their time and money on that idea, because they probably have another one in waiting, or they'll develop something else in a few months.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how we work together. So what do you specifically, so at Apollo 21, I don't know why I say it that way. Apollo 21. Do you have a jingle?
No.
I'll sing it.
No, would you like to write us one?
But is that exclusively what you do, is partner with, like other, digital marketing agencies or companies that are developing products, and you are the partner to get that done for them, to build it?
Yeah, so we partner generally with mid to enterprise size clients to help them through that process, to help them understand and evaluate where, for example, innovation efforts may or may not be working. Innovation is a word that, frankly, I'm sort of surprised we haven't talked more about because it comes up all the time. But today, lots and lots of companies claim to be innovators, want to be innovative, and the reality is that their businesses aren't set up in a manner that will allow and enable the type of innovation that perhaps they're suddenly realizing they need. And so, in addition to helping with the ideation and creation of the product itself, we also help our partners understand how innovation comes to life within their walls, what metrics they need to be focused on, and what the shift in mindset is that will enable innovation over time and longevity for their organization, as opposed to the heavy focus on whatever it is they're doing today.
Yeah, so innovation ties into kind of our conversation, though. Like, right?
Yeah.
It's innovating, doing something new, net new in the world that solves a problem, right?
Yes.
Is that how you define innovation? The word's thrown around a lot.
It is thrown around a lot
to
the
the
point where,
innovate?
yeah, exactly. To the point where, we're starting to not really be clear on what it means. It means something different to every organization, et cetera. I think what we can all agree on is that it means, the consideration and creation of something new that, at least in my mind, solves a problem or creates a new opportunity, a new business model, whatever it is. And so, a lot of times our partners are looking to create a new revenue stream, for example. We had another client recently that was focused on the B2C food delivery space and wanted to create a new revenue stream by expanding their office lunch catering offering. And so we worked with them to establish and create a new product that would support in-office catering and help differentiate them in the market from what exists today for how do I order lunch at work kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, clients come to us to think about, how do we add new revenue streams? How do we create new business models? How do we assess and learn about new opportunities that we might not be thinking about? And so we help them with the mindset around how to think about those things, and then we help them execute and bring to life the outcome of those efforts.
Really good. Solid. So if somebody wants to learn more about what you do, where can they find you on the World Wide Web? Where's your website? Do you hang out anywhere like LinkedIn, Twitter? Where do you hang out?
Yeah, our website is a great place to learn about us and our approach to this type of work. It is apollo21.io. We have a bunch of case studies that show how we've executed this type of work for past customers and partners. We have a bunch of white papers that may prove helpful if you're trying to understand how to usher innovation into your organization, things of that sort. Apollo 21, of course, is active in social media, and I am also very active on social media. I am blah, blah, blah / among many on most of the social things. And then if you happen to be based in New York, where I am, I host monthly founders dinners and monthly innovators dinners, which are actually real live in-person dinners, not on the web. So If you want to meet and have a meal, please give me a shout.
Yeah, there's still room in the world to actually meet people. We still can do that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. There's been a number of conversations at recent founders and innovators dinners about how nice it is to sit down with a small group. We limit every dinner to 6 people. And so it's a relatively intimate thing. There's no name tags. There's none of this, networking event stuff of, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. I work. It's a much more natural conversation. And, I don't know, sharing a meal builds camaraderie. So it's been a great way to meet folks.
Well, that's great. as somebody who likes to build products and probably isn't very good at selling or building the right products, I got a lot out of this conversation.
Awesome.
I would be thinking a lot about this. I appreciate your time and hanging out with us for a little while, Danny. Until next time.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.